Hello and welcome back to the story of the Jebus dynasty, where last time we saw the first part of Emperor Kandy's career as he expanded the empire, fought down a massive civil war, and became a grand victor in one of his own tournaments. Now with his military strength recovered, we will watch as he continues to expand the empire. Continuing to focus on the Iberian Peninsula, Kandy declared war on Duke Benito to vassalize the Duke and further expand his realm. Shortly after declaring this war, the Emperor learned that there was a plot to kill him. Battle of Cortalis was a major victory in this war. 1,000 enemies destroyed, with the loss of only 184. And with the total capture of the enemy's lands, Duke Benito was forced to submit. And shifting his attention to North Africa, Kandy declared a holy war on the Kingdom of Maghreb. First battle of the war was fought at Orania, and was a decisive victory for the Imperial forces. The second battle at Asgul turned out to be a slaughter, 12,000 enemy forces being simply overrun by Kandy's army of 75,000. During the war, Emperor Kandy commissioned the illustrious regalia known as Emperor Kandy's regalia, a scepter, velvet cloak, and gold cross-bearing orb that would be synonymous with the Holy Roman Empire for generations. After some investigation, it was found that Kandy's rival, Malik Fadl, was behind the plot to have him killed. Not to be outdone, Kandy immediately set about a counter-scheme using his new friend Caliph Hazan, Fadil's own spy master. As the war dragged on, a group of peasants declared a civil war, rising up across their empire. And to further secure the dynasty from then on, Jebus rulers started employing a private army. However, for all of their words, only 500 peasants gathered in Malta for the uprising. They were dealt with an army of 14,000. Peasant leader captured, and the rebellion put to an end. And with Maghreb's armies devastated, it was an easy matter for the remaining imperial forces to capture key castles and force the emir to surrender. All of Maghreb became part of the Holy Roman Empire, which now stretched all across the North African coast of the Mediterranean. Shortly after the war, grave news arrived. The plot to kill Kandy's chosen heir, Flame, was being carried by none other than his firstborn Prince Pardone, jealous of the child's claim to the throne. Next, Kandy turned on his old rival, Sheikh Fadil, aiming to seize the once great Sheikh's last holdings. Kandy did not bother to raise his entire force of levies, and instead just raised his personal men-at-arms and the Knights Hospitaller. He's decisively won a battle at Hisinkaras, which they followed up with yet another victory, slaughtering the enemy. And the Emperor's catapults and trebuchets soon overwhelmed the defences, and the Sheikh was forced to surrender. This further extended the empire into the central Iberia. Kandy then tried to have his new vassal arrested for his crimes of murder in the past. The vassal, now Count Fadil, rose up in rebellion. However, with Candy's troops still outside the castle, the war did not last long. And so now Candy had the man who had killed his own family members in his dungeon. To end the feud, Candy executed his rival, burning the man at the stake for the attempted murder. Continuing to push further and further east, next Candy turned on Emir Hamdar of Bayar. Coming ashore in 1293, the Imperial armies devastated the enemy, killing 4,000 for a loss of only a quarter of that number. And although as the Imperials spread out to lay siege to the enemy, they suffered a defeat at the Battle of Hisin Karas, they won a great victory at Al-Bash. And for this, Candy became known as a religious icon. After another battle at Al-Ishbuna, Emir Hamdar agreed to come to terms. For this effort in fighting against the Muslim occupation of Iberia, that the Pope granted the Jebus Dynasty consecration, forever being known as a holy bloodline under divine protection. Emperor Candy's nickname once more changing to the Anointed, becoming a paragon of the faith. And so Emperor Candy the Anointed now took the next step. He had enough of a foothold in Iberia to declare himself the true Christian overlord of the region, entering the Iberian struggle. Now aged 60 years old, Emperor Candy turned his attention back east, declaring a holy war for the Emirate of Damascus. The Imperial forces came ashore at Tripoli and won a resounding victory, the 60,000 Imperials slaughtering nearly 8,000 defenders. Another battle was fought outside the walls of Damascus in October 1294, another 3,000 enemies being defeated. While this war was ongoing, Candy's ally King Mace of Jerusalem called him into another holy war, this one for the Emirate of Shamar. Handily winning his current war, Candy was more than happy to oblige. After 19 months of fighting, the Emirate of Damascus was forced to surrender as its capital fell. During the fighting, another peasant uprising occurred, this time centered around Tunis. Luckily for the Imperial forces, no sooner had the uprising been declared than a massive victory was won at Bahir Petra, 8,000 of the enemy, nearly half their army, being destroyed. Survivors were mopped up at Arundel, another 3,000 being slaughtered. However, some of the vanguard was then wiped out at the Battle of Kadir, setting back the war slightly. However, the peasant uprising was quickly destroyed, and shortly after, news arrived of victory in the Holy War against Shamar. The Empire was once more at peace, and the boundaries of Christendom had been pushed further. Candy's wars of expansion were not yet done. This time he turned his focus on the other realm, claiming the title of descendants of the Roman Empire. The Greek Byzantines were now all that was standing between him and the Jebus dynasty having complete hegemony over the Mediterranean. They would strike first at Thrace, having a claimant to the Byzantine throne arrive at Candy's court. Calling all of his allies, Candy raised his troops, and the eyes of the world fell upon Constantinople as the world's two great superpowers were set to duke it out. The opening moves of the war was a massive battle fought at Gacca, as the imperial army of nearly 100,000 arrived on shore, attacking the Greek army of 43,000, killing 16,000 and dramatically shifting the course of the war. This intervention was timely for the King of Croatia, who was also fighting against the Byzantines and had just been given a second chance with the Byzantine army now in tatters. Wanting to cut to a quick victory, Candy's army then sailed across the Mediterranean and landed at Constantinople, besieging the entirety of Thrace. 2nd of May 1298, Constantinople itself fell. However, before victory could be achieved, the claim was invalidated. With his gambit to take the entirety of Thrace in one quick move thwarted, Candy instead declared war on the county of Byzantium itself, wanting to at least take the capital at Constantinople and divide his enemy. It was as this war was breaking out that Candy's son and heir, Prince Flame, came of age. He was known as Midas Touched, a genius and comely. He was, however, a drunkard at the age of 16. Trusting, content, and humble, he was at least approved of by the church. First battle of this new war was fought at Chiokos, 10,000 enemies being destroyed. However, a second battle outside Constantinople itself brought defeat for the imperial forces, and worst of all, Candy's son, Candy II, was killed in the fighting. During this war, the Jebus dynasty started to become fabled, stories of their deeds being told and retold the world over. Through a series of bitter battles, both sides losing heavily, eventually Candy's armies won a great battle at Byzantium, killing 10,000 Byzantines and bringing the war to a close. Unable to govern Byzantium himself, he gave the crown to his son-in-law, Christoph. Next, Candy did what none of his ancestors had done for generations and turned against the Pope, once more wanting to take Benevento and blot out this strange gap within his realm. For this act, Candy was excommunicated. During this war, Candy was given the title of August, his march on Rome mimicking those of ancient emperors. Despite the Pope hiring mercenaries from across Europe, the victory was eventually able to be declared. Papal realm was reduced. Then at the age of 70 is where we leave our story for today. Emperor Candy defeated both the Byzantine Empire, the papacy, and the Makalash Emirate, massively expanding his realm, pushing into the Iberian Peninsula, and taking on his greatest enemies. Next time we will look at the final years of Emperor Candy's life and the starting years of his heirs. Until then, thank you all for watching, and farewell.